This week, I've got The Roses, which the filmmakers say is inspired by The War of the Roses, but really it is a remake. It's not a shot-for-shot remake. You know, there are some updates here and there, but it's pretty close to that. I also always forget that The War of the Roses is directed by Danny DeVito. But if you are unfamiliar or want to know what The Roses is about, it is about a couple played by Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch, and it's about the course of their relationship and the sort of power dynamics between the two of them and how that affects their relationships. You know, they are both very talented and successful people, but they are having success at different points in their lives, and they are having to navigate the balance of a modern couple, you know, and responsibilities in terms of who is physically going to work, who is staying home with the kids, the envy they feel towards each other's successes, the way they're there to support each other. And I think in the hands of lesser actors, this film would have been disastrous. In the hands of these very talented actors, it is still kind of just eking by, which is a shame because it is written by Tony McNamara, who wrote The Favorite and Poor Things, and also Cruella, which I don't know how I feel about that one. But, you know, he's clearly had a great collaboration with Olivia Colman. It's directed by Jay Roach. It's also got a pretty great supporting cast. You've got Andy Samberg, Nchuti Gatwa, Jamie Demetriou, Kate McKinnon, Zoe Chow, Sunita Mani, and Allison Janney. And again, I think because I enjoy watching Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman act together, you know, I'm like, okay, for this alone, I think they do such a good job of capturing the nuances of a couple who clearly love each other, but also don't always have to like each other. And I think that this version of the story does a good job of addressing some of the modern challenges that couples face in terms of, you know, women in the workforce and feeling envy about that, and also just gender stereotypes when it comes to like homes and raising children and all that type of thing. So I think it does a good job of capturing that, but the story itself and the escalation of frustrations between them is that it's not fun to watch per se. You know, it's just these characters who are at each other's throats for a considerable amount of the film, and because it is being played by two people who are good at playing this, you know, it is impressive to watch, but at a certain point you're like, okay, but what's the point? Like, where are we going with this? I think some of the people who are surrounding them, I love all the actors who are supporting in this, and yet the roles they've been written into feel very one-dimensional. Like Kate McKinnon's character, I don't know what's going on there. You know, I feel like they're like, let's make her extra weird for the sake of being extra weird, but it doesn't do a lot to support the larger story that's going on. I think this is one of those films that must have been a wonderful experience, especially for actors, to get to play on set and, you know, work with some of the greatest other actors who are out there. But at the end of the day, as an audience member, I was like, ooh, this would have been better witnessing this version of it as a play. The other thing I think that I bristled up against a little bit is, you know, this is a very affluent couple, and seeing their bickering over what is effectively like the 1%ness of their existence, I don't know, it didn't sit quite well with me. You know, I was just like, this is not, I don't feel bad for these characters when one of the cruxes of their arguments is over like a mega mansion that they've built and all this other stuff. I'm like, the relatability is challenging. There's certainly universally relatable things in the relationship dynamics, but like I said, in the hands of lesser actors, this would have been just a very painful watch. In the hands of these two who I very much enjoy watching, Olivia Colman is just such a great actress. I love watching, and I'm a big Benedict Cumberbatch fan too, you know, and I do think they play well against each other in this, but it's just something about the entire film left me feeling a little bit hollow, and I was struggling to decide, like, who do I recommend this to? I think if you were somebody who is like an acting student or an actor, you know, and a capital A actor or whatever it is, you're gonna really appreciate this film. It was ultimately watchable, but by the end I did feel really deflated by it. But if you want to watch two superb thespians being given roles that are meant for them to sink their teeth into, this is worth a watch in that department. For everybody else, I think it might be you could watch it at home. We'll go with that. Because it wasn't so horrible that I was like, oh my God, I should warn people away from this. But I went into it wanting to be able to recommend it more strongly to folks, and came out of it going, maybe we almost just go back and watch the original one or read the novel or whatever it is. I am going to give The Roses a 3.5 out of 5. The other thing I have this week is called The Thursday Murder Club, and this is an adaptation. It is based on the first book in a series by Richard Osman, and I happen to be a huge fan of these books. I absolutely love them. I read them as soon as they come out, you know. I think they're wonderful. They are funny and exciting whodunits, and they are about this group of effectively senior citizens in a retirement community in England who solve cold cases. And I think that Richard Osman has written some very distinct characters in his novels. And so I was very excited, but also apprehensive when they said they were going to make this into a movie, because I think anytime anybody adapts something that you are a huge fan of and invested in, it's okay to feel apprehensive, because this is something that you love and you want to love a new version of it, but you already have a very strong mental picture, because again, it is very well written and he has created these characters that I was able to weave, a vision of. And now you have to reckon with another person's vision of it, but this one has like stronger visuals because it's a movie. So they cast Dame Helen Mirren, Sir Ben Kingsley, Pierce Brosnan, Celia Imrie, Naomi Ackie, Daniel Mays, Henry Lloyd Hughes, Tom Ellis, Jonathan Pryce, David Tennant, and Richard E. Grant. And when they announced that cast, I went, okay, this is pretty impressive. And there are some other very big names behind the scenes on this one. It's directed by Chris Columbus of Mrs. Doubtfire and Home Alone and Harry Potter fame, which I'm like, okay, I don't know if that's who I would necessarily pick for a crime whodunit, but I'm along for the ride. The screenplay was by Katie Brand and Suzanne Heathcote, and Steven Spielberg is a producer. So big names behind it, in front of the camera and behind the camera. And so I was like, okay, I am cautiously optimistic about this. And I watched it, and I think, there have been some adaptations that I've seen of late where from the get-go I went, oh no, I don't want to do this, because it's so aggressively conflicted with what I had pictured in my head. This one didn't fall into that category, but I was like, this is not how I envisioned this. And that's not to say it's bad, but it's just tough when you paint a picture in your head, and I've had many more novels with these characters, and when it doesn't quite jive with what you were imagining, it's a little challenging to enjoy. And I think also, and I am speaking only for the book reader experience. If you were coming to this as somebody who's read the books, you're going to be picking apart the differences, especially with a mystery like this. You're going to be looking for, like, where did they have to shortcut, because writing a book and telling a story on screen are two very different experiences in terms of like clues and things like that. I have to give a compliment in that Helen Mirren and Jonathan Pryce are perfect casting for the roles they're in. Helen Mirren plays Elizabeth, who is the most crime-savvy of the Thursday Murder Club members. Ben Kingsley, I was like, great, this is fine. Celia Imrie, I think did a good job. Pierce Brosnan, I bumped up against this a little bit just because he's not what I imagined in, my head. They clearly also had to make him like much larger for this, just because like the physical description of the character doesn't quite match Pierce Brosnan. But there's a sort of minor things. And watching this film, I tried to go, okay, it's tough for me to compartmentalize because I do have so much invested in this book series, but if I just watched this and had never read the books, would I have enjoyed this film? And I think the ultimate answer is yes. I think if you had someone like me going like, this is one of my favorite book series of late and all this other stuff, and then you watch this film, you might go, why? I think it was really hard for them to consolidate and condense this into a film. I would have loved to see this as a series, like each book as a series, not the entire thing as a series, because I do think one of the challenges, especially when you are telling a mystery like this, is delivering information in an organic way and also like timed out. And I think maybe one of the, filming challenges with this is like you do have slightly older actors who don't want to commit to doing an entire series, and you go, okay, we'll do it as a film. But I think if you are unfamiliar with the book series, but like a whodunit, you will enjoy this. You will see the DNA of plenty of whodunits and crime thrillers all over this. It is not the most original thing I've ever read, but it is just, I think the thing I loved about the book is the distinct characters, and they do come across in this. It is just, I feel like you don't get to spend enough time establishing them. Like you are forced to just jump in. And because these actors are very strong and talented actors, like they're able to do it. But the slow reveal is just something I really relished about reading the Thursday Murder Club that I don't know if the film is able to replicate. But all that being said, so if you are a huge fan of the books like me, I think as long as you go into this going, okay, these are different things. Like I cannot treat this as a one-for-one. Like no adaptation is perfect, obviously. Some come closer than others, but, this one falls into that middle of like, let's just treat this as something else. Then I think you will enjoy this. If you are somebody who has no familiarity with it, but likes a good mystery like this, I think you'll enjoy this film as well. It's not the greatest thing you'll have ever seen, but it will scratch that itch. It's a quick, breezy watch. If you see the trailer and you have no interest, unfortunately, this is not one where I'm going to go like, oh yes, you must become a convert. But I do recommend for everyone out there to read the books because I just find them so enjoyable. But as for the Thursday Murder Club film, I'm going to give it a 3.8 out of 5.